Harmonic minor, one of my favorite tonalities that there is in pretty much all of music. I like it because of its dark and exotic character to it. And it's also a favorite of gypsy jazz guys and those frilly shirted neoclassical guys. And a lot of people have not given it a chance, mainly those guys that still stick to this kind of stuff, have not given harmonic minor a chance for that reason. Which is a shame, because harmonic minor lets you do a lot of cool things. So today we're actually going to explore harmonic minor as not so much a string of notes, but as a sound, and as well as cool ideas that you can do with it. And we're also going to explore a helpful little device, helpful little tool that'll help you harmonize any scale that you can come across. Yes, even including the old pentatonic scale. So, let's go ahead and get into it, shall we? Before we actually discuss harmonic minor itself, first, where does it come from? Harmonic minor is related to natural minor. They're both minor scales, so quite obviously, yes. Natural minor is the sixth mode of the major scale, and it's often called the Aeolian mode. It has a formula of your root, major second, minor third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, minor sixth, and a minor seventh. And just for the sake of simplicity, all these examples will be in the key center of A. So, with natural minor, it should create this sound. Which is fair enough. That's a very fine sound. It's been used by many players. Harmonic minor, what we're going to do is we're going to go to that seventh degree, that minor seventh, raise it up by a half step, making it a major seventh. So in the key of A, instead of a G, we're going to create a G sharp. You would think that the rest of these notes are all the same, so changing that G to a G sharp shouldn't make much of a difference. But let me tell you, it makes all the difference in the world. And as we're going to find out, harmonic minor gets its name not because it has a major seventh in it, but because it offers more interesting harmony. That's what it means. So, and of course that's where it gets its name. So let's go ahead and explore harmonic minor, shall we? Here's its formula: a root, major second, minor third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, minor sixth, and a major seventh. Since our key center is A, we have A, B, C, D, E, F, G sharp, and A. Simple enough, right? Well, now we're going to explore this concept of tertian harmony or leapfrog. It sounds fancier than it really is. Tertian harmony is how we construct chords. We stack them on top of each other, right? So we do that by playing a game of leapfrog. If we start on our root note here, we skip over the B, play C, skip over the D, play E. That creates an ACE, that creates the notes ACE, which, if you're harmonically hip, means you created an A minor triad. Which, fair enough, it's a minor scale, so we should already know that. Now if we start on the fourth degree, which is D, and we play our game of leapfrog as well, start on D, skip E, play F, skip G sharp, play A, that creates DFA, that creates a D minor chord. Now all you musical savvy guys will know I'm creating a 1-4 chord progression here. Now natural minor, since we have this minor 7th, would technically create a minor chord if we harmonize it. So it'd create a minor 1-4-5 progression. Which itself is a fine sound, but since harmonic minor has that major 7th in it, what ends up happening if we harmonize on the 5th degree, which is E? Let's do that. So we start on E, skip F, play G, skip A, play B. That creates E, G sharp, B, which you should know is the notes of an E major chord. And this sound is something you've heard in all those Disney cartoons and Scooby-Doo and all that kind of stuff, which itself sounds cool. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? We got some work to do now. That's the Scooby-Doo sound right there. And it's something you've heard everywhere. I mean, it's classic of this. Now in a minor, the reason why we like that so much is that in a minor key, if our 5 chord has a major 7th ringing out in it, right there, we naturally want to hear that resolve to the tonic. So a major 5 chord in a minor key creates more tension and pull towards the tonic. Cool. Now what happens if we continue our game of leapfrog beyond the triads? An interesting thing happens right out of the gate if we start on the root. So if we start here, start on A, skip B, play C, skip D, play E, skip E, play G sharp. Now in natural minor, that would create a minor 7 chord, which fine, but we're not in natural minor anymore. That major 7th interval in harmonic minor creates one of the spookiest sounds in all of music. Creates a minor major 7th chord. Crazy. And if you do that on the 4th degree, that creates a D minor 7th chord. But if you do it on the E note, instead of creating your garden variety E major, you're going to end up creating an E dominant 7th, because now that we're adding in the D note on top of that, that creates a dominant 7th. So you have these chord qualities. That's very spooky and very melancholic sound. Okay, so what if we don't want to use those fancy jazz chords for the 1 and 4 chords? Let's just stick with triads. What happens then? The dominant 7th chord creates even more tension and more pull towards the tonic. You can hear it. When I land on that dominant 7th chord, you really want to hear it resolve because it's very tense. I can make that even more tense though. If I continue my game of leapfrog from the dominant 7th chord, so this is what I did. I went E, skipped F, played G sharp, skipped A, played B, skipped C, played D, But now I'm going to skip E, then play F. That creates the very tense, very melancholic sound of the E7 flat 9. Now that's even more intense and even more, and creates even a bigger pull towards the tonic. Okay, so if we were to hear that in a progression. Because you still have this, that movement right there. Cool. Cool things start happening if you start harmonizing the scale on the 6th degree, the F. So let's do that. Start on F, skip G sharp, play A, skip B, play C. So that creates FAC. Now, if you know your chords, that should create your garden variety F major chord. And since we know that technically E major works in A harmonic minor as well, you have these two chords right next to each other. That's a very flamenco sound, and probably something you've heard all over the place in flamenco music. Speaking of which, that E7 flat 9, you've heard from gypsy jazz guys like Django Reinhardt before. So that arpeggio there is basically a dominant 7th arpeggio, but I added in the flat 9, so that's 7th fret, A string, 8th fret, A string, 6th fret, 9th fret on the D string, and then 7, 9, 10 on the G string. I slid down to D, slid back up to E, then resolved to A. Okay, so what happens if we make one little tiny adjustment? Instead of skipping from F to A, let's do F to G sharp, and then continue on from there to C. Well, that creates an F minor chord. Now, if you have an A minor going into F minor, going to A minor, then back to lower F minor, that's something you've heard in a lot of music and film scores. It's a very distinctive sound. And all of you black metal guys are like, how does that apply to me? You've heard it in black metal before. Or in full chord form. Instant black metal. Okay, but what if we actually continue that game of leapfrog again? So I went F to G sharp, from G sharp to C. What if I go ahead and add in the E note on top of that? Well, I create another minor major 7 chord. You know, that really tense, spooky one. Now, this is something you've heard in a lot of tech death bands before. Very cool. Now, the final thing that we're going to discuss not that arpeggio, but the final thing we're going to discuss is what if we harmonized on the note that made it all possible, the major seventh. Let's go ahead and do that. Start on the G sharp, skip A, play B. Skip B, play D. Skip E, play F. That creates these notes. G sharp, B, D, F. What that creates actually is a diminished seventh chord. And it's something you've heard a lot of times all over the place. But really, what I want to show you here is, I know I played a diminished climb before, but never really explained the theory behind it. So the diminished climb is... Now the reason why this works is because it naturally ties in with harmonic minor, because we're technically playing the seventh mode of harmonic minor, but we're doing it in chord form. But what makes diminished seventh so interesting is that it has these notes: a root, minor third, minor fifth, and a double flat seven interval in it, or a diminished seventh as it's called. What that means is that each note is separated by an interval of a minor third. Or in guitar lingo, 3 frets apart. So now that we know that, we can play this arpeggio, which is 7, 6, 4, 7. So 7 on the G string, 6 on the B string, and then 4 and 7 on the high E. We can play that same shape 3 frets higher. Once you reach here, resolve to the A. And that's the source of the diminished climb. That's a metalized version of that diminished climb you heard with the twiddly mustache, evil kind of character tying the girl to the train tracks on those old 50s cartoons and stuff like that. So that's really a lot of things you can do with harmonic minor. And now I explained all this stuff and gave you sounds of harmonic minor, like you know, we now know what it sounds like. It's got interesting harmony. But a lot of people are like, how am I gonna use this? Here's what I suggest when you're using harmonic minor. Play it over a minor chord to give the chord a minor major seventh color. Now, since you know what minor major 7 should sound like, since you know what minor major 7 should sound like, you can now use harmonic minor to give a minor chord that color. That's actually an E dominant 7 that I played there. Since you know what the minor major 7 should sound like, you can now use the scale over a minor chord to give it that color. In addition, you can use the diminished climb interesting thing in the key of A specifically, every time you land on a G sharp, B, D, or F note, you can just use that diminished climb just by going up by minor thirds and then just playing the scale. So, say you're up here ripping. Or I'm sure you've heard Marty Friedman do that all the time. Or, for example, if you're playing in a normal minor chord progression and it has a major chord for the 5 chord, switch to harmonic minor. So you can actually play natural minor. Once you hear the minor 5 chord, the major 5 chord, you can switch to it. So you're sitting there going. Then all of a sudden the major 5 chord comes across. That's another way to use it. So, really what I'm trying to do is not to get you to think of the scale as this. I want to get you to think about it in terms of tone, tonality. Because tonality is far more useful for us musicians. It's not shapes. Notice I didn't really discuss shapes. I discussed sound more than anything. And that's what I want people to start doing with scales. Start harmonizing. Start experimenting with them so you can get cool ideas that you can do off of scales. You can even do it with pentatonic. Who am I to judge? Like that's a pentatonic little flair by adding in some major notes in there that aren't part of minor pentatonic. Doing it with Phrygian dominant. So, that's why I wanted to stop thinking of scales as derivatives or as linear things or as shapes. Because far too many people play guitar using these, not these. We're musicians. Music is all about this, not this. Who cares what our eyes see? What matters more is what our ears hear. And that's what people are going to remember. So that's why I approached this lesson this way. It's because you need to start experimenting more and start experimenting with sounds. Like what we did with harmonic minor, you could do to any scale that there is and find very interesting things that you can do with them. And it doesn't have to be my kind of style, which is, having the shredder mindset or the metal mindset. You can even make Phrygian dominant sound blues if you want. It's all about what your ears hear and what you like to hear. Screw what the shapes tell you, because once you change the tuning, shapes don't matter anymore. So that's what I suggest. So anyhow, that's a useful tool that you can use to actually start experimenting with scales and start harmonizing with them. and then you can run into some cool ideas that you can do with them. Like, all the suggestions that I had for how to use harmonic minor is something that I personally do. You don't have to do it that way. You can stick around in gypsy jazz land for all I care, and I'll still say that sounds sick. In fact, one of my favorite bands, King Diamond, stuck in gypsy jazz land for a while. I mean, that's sick too, so you can hang out in there for all I care. But what's more important is what you want to create with your own ears. Screw what the shapes tell you. Anyhow, see you later, guys. Keep on rocking.